My parents divorced when I was 3, and they both remarried a couple of years after that. And that's when things kind of went off the rails. I found myself in a blended family, and some of the members of that blended family that I lived with were abusers. You know, as a kid, you're not really sure, what's going on. And sometimes people who are abusers convince you that it's your fault. Sin thrives in the dark, and so I kept it a secret for many years. As a teenager, I started to withdraw, just kind of started to collapse inward, slowly, gradually over time. My parents sent me to counselors, but it didn't really make a big difference because I never told anybody what the real issue was. By the time I was 15, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder, clinical depression, and I had begun to do self-harm, tried to commit suicide, and then my parents decided it was time to put me into a long-term care facility to see if that could help. And they threw the book at me. I mean, group therapy, individual therapy, meditation, you name it. They tried it all. But I was pretty callous to it all. I'd seen a lot of counselors. Not a lot of people had picked up on the cues, so I just didn't trust anybody. One in particular was the lead psychologist, and he said, look, I'm not a religious man by any stretch, but there is someone or something that's protecting you and watching over you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And then I had a history teacher who was in the treatment facility who gave me a similar idea and said, you survived this for a reason. You're here. You're thriving now. You're moving through this. And for some reason, you've been protected through it all. After 10 months, they let me out. I went back to the real world. I was not able to go back to my high school. So my parents looked for a private school that was nearby and that we could afford. Turned out to be one small little school, and I became their 18th out of 18 seniors in their class. And I can remember standing in the doorway, seeing all these, what were then juniors, standing in there, and they were all looking at me and I'm looking at them, and there was this one cute girl in a turquoise dress who just totally took my breath away. And I thought, okay, I can probably go here. I'll be fine. Little did I know later on that girl who was in my senior class, who I spoke to maybe 5 times the whole year, I was still smitten, but, a coward like most teenage boys. 6 months after graduation, I finally got up the courage and we started to date. And it has been 30 years that she and I have been companions. She's been the love of my life. She's been my wife for the last 24 years. And that started to make me think at the time, okay, if I had not lived the childhood I lived, if I had not gone through the things I'd gone through, if I had not been put into a treatment center, I never would have ended up at this little school where I saw this person that I would end up spending the rest of my life with, and who has helped me grow and move through a lot of the issues that I dealt with over the years. And that, that starts to think about that grace that comes before you. There was always someone watching over me. And in the back of my mind, I always felt like I wasn't alone. Even though I felt rather alone, I wasn't alone enough that I didn't have a glimmer of hope. My best friend, who I went to church with, we grew up Presbyterian, he was kind of a womanizer of a teenager. But he was insistent. He's like, look, I've met some people, I've attended some churches that have changed my outlook, changed my life, and I want you to come with me. And they gave the invitation, which as a Presbyterian, I had never seen that done before, didn't really understand what it was, but I went forward and I accepted Jesus Christ. And I realized, okay, I get it. You've been there, and I need to do things differently. I didn't understand what the grace that comes before me meant, really didn't understand that concept, but as an adult, I certainly do now. I mean, that's everything to me. That concept is, it means a lot. And the rest of it goes to my wife being just persistent, saying, yeah, I know you don't want to go to church. You don't like sitting in the sanctuary. You got anxieties. I get it. We're going to go to church. And now I'm the one that, okay, we need to go to church. My grandmother, who's 92 now, told me, she said, at her age, she can look back at her life and say, there's a path that I've walked that God laid out before me. And she said, when you're on the path, it's not as easy to see, but once you get further down, you can look back and see how this was laid out for you. All the people he put along that path who have revealed things to me, but all of them had a purpose that helped create this relationship that I have with Jesus Christ, which has made all the difference in my life. It has given me the ability to forgive the people who have abused me and to have a sympathy for them, to understand that they must have gone through some terrible trauma in their lives that would enable them to commit that kind of an act on a small child. I look at people and I know we're all broken. We're all carrying those scars around, and it does help you have a better impression of people. It's been quite a journey, and every bit of it is due to the living God that has brought me all this way and through all these good and bad things.